good to see you all here again. Just waiting for us to get set up. We're good. All right, so welcome everyone here in present and Holy Covenant, and those of you joining us on Facebook Live. It's good to have you with us. Will you pray with and for me, please? Gracious God, may all we speak and hear be a reflection of your love. Grant us wisdom to understand, and having understood, to do. In all your names. Amen. So, I love the book of Isaiah. It's one of my favorite books of the Bible. The Sweet Honey in the Rock song that we just heard most of is based on Isaiah 54, which is the chapter right before the reading that we heard from Jim. The barren one who had no offspring, who felt forsaken, is promised a legacy of many children with God as a spouse, and is invited to a feast, to a celebration. Remember that for the people of Isaiah's time, children were a symbol of your presence in the world. You knew you wouldn't be forgotten when you had children, and that was very important to not be forgotten. It also meant that you were able to provide and that you had bounty. So people knew that you existed because your child was here and they would have children. And so your name literally would be not forgotten, would be carried on. And so for women, though, the situation was a little bit different. Having children wasn't at all an elective thing. If a married woman of the right age didn't have children, then something was wrong, and generally it was blamed on the woman. Considered to be her. People were, of course, well aware of where children came from. They knew the process, and they knew that man and woman got together, and that was how you had children. So, when there were no children, even though the couple was married, had been married, had sex for many years, and so on, and there was no child, somehow no one ever looked at the man, or very rarely. Ancient Greek, Egyptian, and Jewish medical texts all assume that the woman is merely a vessel to grow a person in. And that if she doesn't have children, it's because she's not welcoming them, or her body isn't, and so of course it's all the woman's fault. Sorry guys, that's just the way they were thinking back then. It's no blame to you today. So given the importance of children, it was vital for women to give birth. And that wasn't just for royalty, that was for everybody. Right? Everybody wanted to have children and pass their name on, especially in Israel, which was trying to grow after the return from exile. So it was vital for women to give birth. It was part of their identity, and it was actually part of their safety too, because in many places women could be divorced and put away and kicked out if they did not provide children. Actually, it sounds sort of like Henry VIII, doesn't it? If you remember our history. So while we may live in very different times and understand that conception is complex and that no one is quote-unquote at fault often, there's very many factors that go into it, we can still understand the grief of people, and some of them are us, people who want children desperately but are unable to conceive. And that is the grief of chapter 54 of Isaiah that Sweet Honey in the Rock was singing about. And the reassurance that there will be children. So many that their tent, their home, must be enlarged. We don't know whether those children are literal or figurative, and like poetry, it doesn't really matter. That's not the focus. The focus is on trust in God, who is our partner and our support in grief and lost hope, who sends results beyond what we can ever expect. But it's not our time, it's God's time. And so too, the vine dresser in the parable that Luke tells is willing to wait for God God's time. You know, that the owner is impatient. He wants results now, or she wants results now. But the gardeners among us know, as the vine dresser did, that good things come in their own time. We can't pull open flower buds, although I think many of us did as children. We get so excited about the flowers starting to bud, and you try to pull it open, and it's not there. You can't open cocoons in an effort to hurry things up. At the most, we can push them to bloom a little bit earlier by bringing them inside where it's warmer, so that, you know, the daffodils bloom earlier, the pussy willows, or whatever. But it doesn't really work for all flowers, of course. You can't push roses. You can't push the irises. And so the vine dresser says to wait, to give it another year, maybe some extra care and fertilizer, and let's see what happens then. And as we move through Lent, we're continuing that passage through Lent, we can exercise our patience too. I know I've been impatient for spring, for warmth, for flowers, and Easter. And by the way, starting today, and from now until September, the sun will never set before 7 o'clock.
Yay.
Yes. So it's a sign that those things are coming, or all those things are coming. We know they are, but they're not quite here yet. I can't quite get away with sandals yet, darn it. So what are we waiting for? What are you waiting for? We in America, we're waiting for the report from Special Counselor Mueller, and we got it on Friday. We don't know what it means or anything more about it, but we got it, finally. Some of us may be waiting to heal, or for new employment, or a special relationship, or an event that's coming up, a wedding, a concert, a trip. Waiting, I have to say for me, is one of the hardest things to do. I really hate to wait. Patience is not one of my virtues. And yet, here we all are, waiting, all of us, for many things. So what can we do while we wait? Well, I made 2 trips earlier this year, one in January and one in February. And as we all know, traveling requires waiting, especially when you're flying, as I was. Waiting, a lot of waiting. You're waiting to board, you're waiting to take off, you're waiting to get to the gate, you're waiting, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You're waiting for your luggage, waiting. So how did I fill that time? Well, of course I read. Anybody who knows me will know that I always have a book with me. But I read to prepare for my destination, for where I was going. I read the book that we were studying for my continuing education. I finished reading that on the way down to Florida. And in February, we had status reports that was for the grant meeting, and we had status reports on everybody's projects. So I went through and read those status reports. I did not passively wait, sitting at the airport drinking coffee and surfing Facebook, but as tempting as that was. I prepared for where I was going and what I was doing. And that's possible for everything that we are waiting for. We need patience, but we can prepare. And that preparation will improve what we're waiting for. The vine dresser didn't just sit there and say, okay, we'll wait another year. The vine dresser went in and started digging around the roots and clearing them up and adding fertilizer and watering it extra and pruned it probably to prepare it for bearing fruit. When we're hoping for a special relationship, to take another example, we don't, at least I hope we don't, rush out and grab the first attractive person we see and say, oh, we're in a relationship with you. It doesn't work that way, right? Obviously, we get to know someone that we find attractive, who we find attractive, to find out if they're not only attractive, but compatible, right? And sometimes that takes a while, but we do that. But even more fundamentally than that, we prepare for a relationship before we've ever met someone that we might be interested in. We look to ourselves and ensure that we are emotionally healthy, that we are ready and willing to do the work of a relationship, that we are in a place to be in a relationship, meaning, we're not about to move, or we're financially okay, and things like that. And that's the digging and pruning that needs to be done before we can really be someone's best partner. Because of course we want to be their best partner so they can be our best partner. Right? And you can follow the same reasoning when you think about a dream job, or the house you've always wanted, or getting to a certain place financially, or whatever it is that's near and dear to your heart, whatever it is you are waiting for and looking for and going towards. Most things that are worthwhile take preparation and patience. They aren't handed to us on a platter, and we can't grab them before the time is right. As I said, patience is not one of my strong suits, but it's what Lent teaches us. To work towards our goal, to keep going, keep reaching, keep preparing, and it will happen. Our tent will have to be enlarged. The tree will bear fruit. Easter is coming. In all God's names, amen.
Amen.